All right, now we're warmed up. Please help me thank Mr. John Sanford on the tenor saxophone, Mr. Louis Hurrivo on the piano. So last night about this time, Kevin Smith was at the Apollo Theater in Harlem. Let's give it up for the Apollo. Give it up for Kevin. And then he had some friends in New York take him out last night after the concert at the Apollo, and he hasn't slept since. So if he nods off a couple of times, just hang in there with him. But we really, really, really appreciate him coming all the way back from the Apollo to play this gig for us. I mean, not so much so that I'm going to pay you more, but just know that, like, in my heart, it means a lot to me. So. That's a good point. Okay. So that tune was entitled "Oh, Lady Be Good," written by the great George Gershwin, lyrics by Ira Gershwin. That song was recorded. It was one of his earlier songs that was popular. It was recorded by Paul Whiteman. That's the version that kind of became popularized. And Paul and George Gershwin shared a similar belief that there was this great new music called jazz that was not getting the credit it deserved. It was mainly African American in its roots, and that alone made it had a much harder row to hoe, if you will, to try and get some legitimacy. And people like George Gershwin and Paul Whiteman tried to basically move that along. We're going to talk about that a lot tonight. Oh, okay. Hang on. Let's do it. I've got a visa. Let's see. No, you don't. This is a really big bill. You're not going to want this, but you should. Okay. Yeah, by the end of the night, this is going to be empty, I'm sure. So, as George Gershwin and Paul Whiteman would work a little bit more together, a very important composition is going to come out of that, which we're going to talk about in just a little bit. But I want to start with George when he was a little boy. His father was Moish Gershowitz. And his mother was Rosa, and when they both escaped Russia, they were Jewish in descent, and they escaped Russia and moved to the United States to get away from Jewish persecution. When they got here, they changed their names, and Moish Gershowitz turned into Morris Gershwin. Their first son was named Ira Gershwin, and then 2 years later, his younger brother Jacob Gershwin would be born. Jacob would get into the piano. His first 10 years of his life, he didn't care about music at all. All he cared about was all the regular stuff like baseball and girls, basically. And then he heard his friend Maxie play the violin, played a beautiful violin concerto, and he just became transfixed with music. And so he decided to take that very seriously. He started practicing the piano, and he just had an aptitude for it. He became a prodigy fairly early on. And by the time he was 15, he would decide to go into the music business. He would change his name to George Gershwin at that point, and then the rest of his family kind of followed as he became more and more popular. His first job was something called a song plugger. So this is obviously in the early 1900s, and if you had written a song and you wanted people to buy your song, buy the sheet music for your song, it wasn't going to show up on the Tonight Show. No, how would people hear this music? You would hire these publishing companies, and even department stores would hire these pianists and these vocalists to sing these new songs in the hopes that if you passed by, you might want to buy it and go home and play it yourself. So that's what George Gershwin did early on. He was a song plugger. In that process, he started to get really good at songwriting himself. He wanted to take the piano more seriously. He was a very good pianist, like I said, from a very early age. He tried to study with Maurice Ravel, and when Ravel heard him play, he said, "Why would you want to be a second-rate Ravel when you're already a first-rate Gershwin? Just whatever you're doing, just keep doing it, kid." And that's exactly what he did. He had his first big hit in 1919, a tune called Swanee. That was his first hit. And then actually there's an interview with him not too long after that broke as he started to get more popular. And he talks about wanting to make jazz a more serious music or get people to take it more seriously, I should say. And so he's going to start trying to inject jazz into more and more of his songs. He starts writing some musicals. He's gonna he and his brother Ira are gonna start working on a musical called OK, which was actually dedicated to his longtime girlfriend. And as he's writing, he and Ira are writing the musical. There's a lot of good things going on, but they haven't found that one ballad that they think is gonna, kind of be the big love song in the story. So George is rehearsing this like dance number. They're all up there dancing, and he's written this like syncopated dance piece, and he's playing it. And then George's younger sister comes over and starts talking to him while he's playing. And George is a very good pianist, but even he has his limitations. So as he's playing this song, and his sister is talking to him, he starts slowing down just because he kind of can't do. Men can't do two things at once. You just got to bear with us, right? It's just this little bit of like so. And as he started to slow it down accidentally, his brother Ira goes, "Wait, hold on. Play that song a lot slower. That's our ballad. We're going to do that tune for you right now to help us deliver this wonderful tune that you'll all recognize. I want you to help me welcome our very special guest. She is a deep lover of Gershwin. She knows a lot about him, and I'm very honored to have her, Miss Carrie Bell.
Says that love is blind. Still we're often told, seek and ye shall find. So I'm going to seek a certain lad I've had in mind. Looking everywhere, haven't found him yet. He's the big affair I cannot forget. Only man I'll ever think of with regret. I'd like to add his initial to my monogram. Tell me, where is the shepherd for this lost lamb? There's somebody I'm longing to see. I hope that he turns out to be someone to watch over me. I'm a little lamb who's lost in the wood. I know I could always be good to one who watch over me. Although he may you tell him please to put on some speed, follow my lead. Oh, how I need someone to Although he may not be the man some girls think of as handsome, to my heart he carries the key. Won't you tell him, please, to put on some speed, follow my lead. Oh, how I need someone to watch over me.
Miss Carrie Bell. All right, so I had mentioned before. Oh, before I go on to the next tune, we're going to talk a little bit about Ira Gershwin as well, right? His older brother, who's doing a lot of the lyrics. There's a lot of the lyrics in this song. Actually, Ira wrote for his wife. He pictured his wife singing this to him, and in particular the line, although he may not be the kind of girls most think of as handsome, he wrote that line basically thinking of his wife, thinking of him, which is pretty self-deprecating. That's my kind of humor. I like that. So anyway, so I'd mentioned Paul Whiteman and him trying to encourage George Gershwin to keep writing, this new style of music, and they had a brief conversation. Whiteman was going to do this big jazz meets classical extravaganza concert, and he wanted George to write this big piece that basically sounded like it was classical music, but instead it was actually with jazz and blues and American sounds in it. But George declined because he had this new musical he was working on called Sweet Little Devil. So he said, it sounds great. I'm just going to go great for you guys, but I just have too much on my plate right now. And then while George was playing billiards one day, Ira was flipping around the paper. He goes, "Hey, George, I'm reading this article here, and it says Paul Whiteman says that George Gershwin is going to debut a brand new piece at my concert in 12 weeks. Did you know this?" And he was like, no, okay, so I'm writing a whole musical and I have to write an entire new jazz piece that I've never written before. So lots of pressure there. But I think his inspiration for the piece, the way he describes it is really cool, and I'm actually going to read that to you now. He was on a train from New York to Boston while working on music for the Sweet Little Devil, and while on that train, he said, suddenly an idea occurred to me. There had been so much talk about the limitations of jazz, not to speak of the manifest misunderstanding of its function. Jazz, they said, had to be in strict time. It had to cling to dance rhythms. I resolved, if possible, to kill the misconception with one sturdy blow. Inspired by this aim, I set work to compose a new piece. I had no set plan, no structure to which my music must conform. The rhapsody began as a purpose, not a plan. I worked out a few themes, but just at this time, I had to appear in Boston for the premiere of Sweet Little Devil. It was on the train with its steely rhythms, its rattly bang that is so often stimulating to a composer. I frequently hear music in the very heart of noise. That I suddenly heard, even saw on paper, the complete construction of this rhapsody from beginning to end. No new themes came to me, but I worked on the thematic material already in my mind and tried to conceive the composition as a whole. I heard it as sort of a musical kaleidoscope of America, of our vast melting pot, of our incomparable national pep, our blues, and our metropolitan madness. By the time I'd reached Boston, I had a definite plot for the piece. Obviously, the piece I'm referring to is Rhapsody in Blue. He's going to debut this in 1924. It's actually going to close the concert. The concert was insufferably long. I don't know how many people did it, but it was like 4 or 5 hours long. And finally, Gershwin gets up there, and the piece, as we all know, starts very beautifully. What I think is kind of interesting is that, and I think this is just luck, but basically, Gershwin didn't finish the piece when it was time to perform it. He had the main structures in it. He basically told Paul and the orchestra, there's a couple of spots in here, just leave it open and I'll just make something up on piano and I'll get us from one section to the next. And in this, the way he gets to that very last theme is I think one of the most beautiful pieces of American music. You listen to the whole thing, and then right there toward the end, before we hear that last theme, what George plays is magnificent. He mentions themes. It's a rhapsody, so it's this kind of free-flowing, free-form piece of music. It's not as structured as like a symphony or a sonata. Years later, people would put names to the 4 main themes from this, and we're going to perform a little quartet arrangement I did of the third theme. It's entitled Stride. Once we get into it, you'll clearly recognize which part of it is Rhapsody in Blue, assuming John plays it right. So we're going to continue now. This is my arrangement of George Gershwin's Stride from Rhapsody in Blue. Thank you all so much. Rhapsody in Blue. So I'd mentioned a little bit about Ira, his older brother, and their partnership. George, obviously, as I'd mentioned, at a young age, was already a prodigious pianist. He started writing music. During all of this time, Ira really wasn't much into music. He was working with his dad. And slowly but surely, he got more and more into trying to write lyrics for George. And they're going to pair really professionally for the first time, working on the song that we started the show with, "Oh Lady Be Good." That was the title of a musical that the two of them, it was the first time they collaborated. This was in 1924. And they really, the two of them, working together, not only, George is now just worried about the music, he's not having to worry about the lyrics. Ira working on the lyrics, the two of them working together really helps form the bedrock of what we now consider the great American songbook. And that relationship is going to be so prolific in a very short amount of time. One of the musicals that they did, they started working on this operetta that actually never made it to Broadway, but there was a really pretty song that came out of it that they stuck into a different, actually into a movie with Ginger Rogers. And we're going to do that beautiful tune for you right now. You're going to hear the great marriage of the music and the lyrics. And to help us sing it, I'm not going to sing it. John, are you singing? Yeah, I'm singing. Okay, to help us not sing it and to help you guys not hear us sing it, Miss Carrie Bell.
Embrace me, my sweet embraceable you. Embrace me, you irreplaceable you. Just one look at you, in me. You and you alone bring out the gypsy in me. I love all the many charms about you. impossible you. Embrace me, you irreplaceable you. Just one look at you, my heart grew tipsy in me. You and you alone bring out the gypsy in me. I love all the many charms about you. Above all, I want my arms about you. Don't be a naughty baby. Come to mama, do. My sweet embraceable you.
Miss Carrie Bell. So after the success of Rhapsody in Blue, I know for some of you it looks like I am John and John is me. So John, just while you're doing that, move your mouth so it looks like we already get confused all the time anyway. There you go. Yeah, you're doing great. Did you make goofy faces like I do, John? Were you doing that? Okay, thank you. True to form. So after the success of Rhapsody in Blue, George wanted to continue to write not just numbers for musicals, but larger scale works. The next one he's going to do was also a pretty big success, and that was the classic American in Paris. Off of the success of those two, he's going to take a little vacation. When he's on vacation, he's going to start reading a book by DuBose Hayward entitled Porgy. And it's this great story that George really gets behind, and he decides he wants to write basically an opera that he will eventually entitle Porgy and Bess. And he's going to get together with Ira, who's going to help write the lyrics, but also with DuBose Hayward himself, and they're going to start penning this opera. And his vision for this is for it to be an all-black cast and to tell this story of blacks in the South, which is one kind of like vision for it. He takes it to the Metropolitan Opera House, and Metropolitan says, yeah, this looks great, we can do it, but we can't have an all-black cast. And so they were like, well, I mean, we could, Metropolitan's like, well, we could do like blackface. It's like, no, we are not going to be doing that. So none of that. So he couldn't get it at the Metropolitan Opera House. He is going to finally get it put on with an all-black cast. At least when it first came out, it was a commercial flop. It did not do well, which just shows you how ahead of its time it was. But over the years, it would gain more and more acclaim, more and more esteem, and now it's one of the more important American and jazz works. There's a lot of debate whether it's technically an opera or a musical or an operetta, but as we've already seen with George's other works like Rhapsody in Blue and even in American in Paris, he's purposely trying to break the mold. He's trying to create new song forms and new sounds that are uniquely American and not just kind of stacking on top of the European music that came before him. And Porgy and Bess is a great example of that. Actually, in the Gershwin estate, it says that you cannot perform this unless it's an all-black cast. And Hungary actually Budapest, they got in trouble because they wrote that the cast was all black, and then I think the Gershwin estate looked at that and said, there's like less than 1% Africans. And there's a good chance that this is not actually an all-black cast, so they went over and checked, and indeed it wasn't. So they're very strict about that, and which I think is a great thing. So many great songs came from Porgy and Bess. Probably the most popular. This song has been recorded by dozens upon dozens of jazz musicians. Miles Davis, Ella Fitzgerald, you name it. It's probably the biggest tune from this album. We're going to do our quartet interpretation from Porgy and Bess, The Great Summertime. Now you see why so many jazz musicians record that one. That was always a lot of fun to play, which almost all of Gershwin's tunes were. And that really is kind of a microcosm, what we've kind of been showing here. He'll have these beautiful rhapsodic pieces, these soulful bluesy things that can be interpreted by a vocalist or not a vocalist, and really twisted and turned into all these really cool and inventive ways, which is something that really helps kind of kickstart jazz as an art form here in America. So I'd mentioned that Rhapsody in Blue had not Rhapsody in Blue, Porgy and Bess. After the commercial flopping of Porgy and Bess, George is going to get a little disillusioned with the Broadway scene over that. He's going to move to Hollywood. He's going to continue to write some musicals, but he's going to start getting into writing for film. And he and his brother are going to take their talents to the big screen, and they're going to work on several movies together. One in 1936, I believe it was, starred the great Fred Astaire and Ginger Rogers. Gershwin had written for Ginger before, as we had discussed. They did a great movie entitled Shall We Dance? There's a bunch of great songs that came from that, but one of my favorites we're going to do tonight. This song is a great example of the marriage of George's music and Ira's lyrics. It's basically the Romeo and Juliet style love affair of two people that come from completely different worlds and how they're going to make it work. This song has been recorded by Ella Fitzgerald and Billie Holiday and so many greats. And we're going to do it for you right now. It's a great tune entitled Let's Call the Whole Thing Off. And to help us sing it, Miss Carrie Bell. Wake up, Kevin. Yeah, last day. lyrics. I gotta make sure I don't take it too fast. 1, 2, 3.
You say either and I say either. You say neither and I say neither. Either, either, neither, neither. Let's call the whole thing off. You like potato and I like potato. You like tomato, I like tomato. Potato, potato, tomato, tomato. Let's call the whole thing off. But oh, if we call the whole thing off, then we must part. And oh, if we ever part, then that might break my heart. So if you like pajamas and I like pajamas, I'll wear pajamas and give up pajamas. For we know we need each other, so we better call the calling of off. Let's call the whole thing off. You say laughter and I say laughter. You say after and I say after. Laughter, laughter, after, after. Let's call the whole thing off. You like vanilla and I like vanilla. You sarsaparilla and I sarsaparilla. Vanilla, vanilla, chocolate, strawberry. Let's call the whole thing off. But oh, if we call the whole thing off, then we must part. And oh, if we ever part, then that might break my heart. So if you go for oysters and I go for oysters, I'll order oysters and cancel the oysters. For we know we need each other, so we better call the calling of off. Let's call the whole thing off.
Bell. So not long after the success of Shall We Dance, the movie, he's gonna get a chance. Remember, he's living on the West Coast now. He's gonna get a chance to perform with the San Francisco Symphony. They're gonna perform one of a collection of his pieces, all stuff he's written before, and he's gonna do. Oh man, what's going on over here?
I found it.
Hey, what? No, we already played that piece.
Yes, we did.
What are you doing over there?
Somebody put my music out of order.
Somebody. I might have played a trick on you. See how tired you were. How'd that work out for me? Oh. All right, let's see. I got a Diners Club card. Do you remember that? I think that still works. Okay, good. I've got a pet grooming card. That's definitely not going to help us. Okay. All right. Yes, I use my wallet on my snare drum. It's a very, very, very expensive snare drum mute. So, as far as where I was saying before Kevin distracted me, the San Francisco Symphony. There it is. I got it back. He's going to perform a bunch of his pieces for the San Francisco Symphony. This is in February of 1937. One of the pieces is a piece he wrote entitled Piano Concerto in F that really kind of shows off his prodigious talents. But at this concert, he's got to kind of fumble and stumble over, which is really uncharacteristic for him. Like I said, he's been a phenomenal pianist ever since he was a little kid. He's going to kind of fumble his way through and forget some of his own compositions, which is a little bit weird. That's actually going to be some of the first signs of a developing brain tumor. But nobody knows what it is, and it's going to take months of like weird things happening, he's forgetting things, and nobody really puts it together until months and months later. They finally take him in to the doctor, and they finally discover this tumor, and they fly a surgeon over and try to, and they do remove the tumor, but George essentially doesn't survive the surgery. He kind of gets through the night and then doesn't get back up the next morning. So on July 11th, 1937, at the age of 38, George Gershwin is going to pass away. So just think about all the amazing music that would have come from him had that not happened. He was obviously clearly in the prime of his career. He had just written these three great pieces. He was writing all this great music for Fred Astaire and Ginger Rogers, and he was just starting to become kind of like a Hollywood music icon when this is going to happen. This is going to devastate a lot of people, probably nobody more than his older brother, Ira. Ira is not going to touch any of the music that they were in the middle of working on until about 3 years pass. And then he finally digs up some of the old stuff. He goes through it, and he'll finish a handful of the compositions that they were working on. One in particular that we're going to play for you right now is they had already started on the lyrics and the music, and then when Ira kind of rediscovered it and started looking it over, it just hit him as like a love letter to his younger brother George. So he's going to finish the lyrics to this song basically as in memory of his wonderful brother George. So we're going to play this tune for you right now. Ella Fitzgerald had a big hit on it in the 1980s. Harry Connick Jr. is going to perform this tune in the wonderful movie When Harry Met Sally. This song is going to kind of have a resurgence on the radio. That's how incredible George Gershwin's music is, that it was still relevant and popular in the 1980s. And trust me, if it made it through the 1980s, that really does say a lot, because that was, man, the clothes we wore back then. All right, gotta shake that one off. All right. Yes. I did. I had long hair. I had all this really long, luxurious hair. Yeah, no more. I had actually a mullet for a while, Kevin. It was bad. I'll show you pictures. It's not in this wallet.
I need pictures.
I got pictures. Huge drum set, big, long, flowing mullet. God, it was god awful. Gives me the chills. All right. As much terrible stuff came out of the 1980s, at least the resurgence of this song was one of the bright spots. So, yeah, we better. This is Ira's love letter to his younger brother George. Our love is here to stay. Hey, there it is. Okay. Good thing you guys didn't hear that part. We have one more number for you. Real quick, before we play our last number and talk about the last part, for those of you, if this is your first time here, we do this series once a month, one Sunday every month. It's called the Jazz Legacy Project, and we usually book these things in 6-month subscriptions. Next month, we've got the great Ben Webster, and then after that, we're going to restart the series. We're going to be doing Herbie Hancock and Thelonious Monk, Dave Brubeck, Charles Mingus, John Coltrane. We're going to hit a lot of my favorite artists. So if you guys are interested in being a part of this, you can always find it on the website or talk to anyone at the back of the club on your way out. So we have one more tune that we're going to play for you. I just kind of want to wrap it up with George Gershwin's contribution. I always think of it like this. In the 20s and 30s, when Louis Armstrong was teaching us how to play jazz, George Gershwin was teaching us how to write jazz. He really did help bring the sound of American music and put it into the mainstream and also put it into the concert halls. And this is going to start a chain of events that's going to allow people like, the great jazz composers like Duke Ellington and Billy Strayhorn and Thelonious Monk and Mary Lou Williams and all these wonderful jazz composers. It's going to help them take that music out of the Broadway theaters, out of the jazz clubs, and put them on concert stages all around the world. And the Gershwin brothers certainly had a big hand in making that happen. One more tune that we're going to close with. I had mentioned that there's a lot of these tunes that jazz musicians loved to play. We've recorded it over and over again. There's one song in particular that has been recorded hundreds of times by jazz musicians that was written by the great George Gershwin. That we're gonna play it for you. Before we do, I want to help bring out Miss Carrie Bell. She's going to sing it. Let's give Carrie a round of applause for tonight, all the lyrics and dealing with all our nonsense. Mr. John Sanford on the tenor saxophone. Mr. Louis Hurvo on the piano. And Mr. Apollo Theater himself. You stayed awake for the whole thing. I'm with the night's not done. Yeah. You nodded off a few times. Mr. Kevin Smith on the bass. To tell you the name of this tune, I'm going to tell you one of my favorite stories. This is an encounter between two of my favorite comedians, Carl Reiner and Mel Brooks. Carl had been having a few health problems, and he went to the doctor to kind of get checked out. They would get together a couple weeks later, and then Mel Brooks asked Carl. He said, "Hey, how did it go at the doctor?" He says, "Well, pretty good. Turns out I got arrhythmia." And he goes, "Who could ask for anything more?"
I got rhythm, I got music, I got my man who can ask for anything more. I got daisies in green pastures, I got my man who can ask for anything more. Oh, man, trouble, I don't mind him, you won't find him around my door. I got starlight, I got sweet dreams, I got my man who can ask for anything more, who can ask for anything more. daisies in green pastures. I got my man who can ask for anything more. Oh, the trouble, I don't mind him. You won't find him hanging around my front back door. Oh, got rhythm, I got sweet dreams. I got my man who can ask for anything more. Who can ask for anything
Carrie Bell, John Sanford, Louis Hervo, Kevin Smith. My name is Justin Barnes. Thank you all so much for coming out to the Velvet Note and spending your Sunday evenings with us. It means the world to us. Have a wonderful evening.